A minor injury, a mere cut on his finger, led to sepsis and almost cost Georg Winterling his life. He lost both arms and legs.
There are days when I want to go into the woods and scream my head off. They do happen, and happen often.
Now he just wants to get his old life back, as much of it as he can.
Let your feet make contact with the floor as much as possible. Get yourself into a good starting position with good body tension. Before you stand up, review all the important points in your head. This will help you get up without using too much energy.
Operating an electric wheelchair works well. That Georg is still alive is a small miracle. He was in an induced coma for 16 days and underwent 8 surgeries. For months, it was uncertain whether he would survive. He now attends sessions at this clinic to train his extremely weakened body.
When I arrived here after my operation, my body was so weak and my muscles so atrophied that I could only lift my head. The first thing I had to do was get fit again. Rebuild my body, rebuild my muscles, so that I could do basic things of everyday life again, like brushing my teeth, or just getting out of bed and into my wheelchair.
It all started so innocently.
What happened was that I cut myself on an old air mattress in the cellar. It was a very, very small cut on my left index finger, which became infected. It turned into a streptococcal infection, which ultimately triggered sepsis. You can see this small, small cut here, and that then developed into a blister overnight.
The infection was caused by mouse droppings on the mattress. Soon Georg was in severe pain, had a fever and shortness of breath. 2 doctors told him the infection was harmless. Georg survived because he was finally admitted to a hospital, where he suffered septic shock. He had to be placed in an induced coma. During the infection, his body diverted most of his oxygen to his vital organs, the brain, the heart and the lungs.
Because of that, large parts of both his arms and legs didn't receive enough blood. This is what ultimately led to him needing the amputations. It was a really serious case.
Professor Greitemann, Georg's attending physician at the rehabilitation clinic. His major concern early on was that the residual limbs and the skin protecting them heal properly. Only then was it possible for Georg to be fitted with prostheses. Sepsis is one of the most common diseases worldwide, affecting around 50 million people every year. Most deaths could be avoided with a correct diagnosis and proper treatment. Sepsis is a severe inflammation of the body. It's triggered by bacteria entering the bloodstream via an injury, for example. Sepsis occurs when the immune system overreacts, damaging the body instead of fighting the infection. Left unchecked, it attacks vital organs which start to fail. This is exactly what makes it so dangerous.
I was completely unaware of what sepsis is and what it can lead to in the end. I've only learned recently how bad sepsis can be. In most cases, it leads to death because it is not recognized properly. In that respect, I was very lucky to have survived it and to still be sitting here today.
Come on in.
The whole space just for us.
Shall we find a good place to practice standing up?
Georg's therapist, Carsten Schmidt, doesn't just give him practical tips. He's a cheerleader too. He knew Georg would need both psychological and physical help.
Very nice, well done. I didn't help.
That worked out well.
Yes, you did that all on your own. I think what makes him different is that he doesn't look back, he only looks ahead. I think he realized how things were going for him a few months ago, that he had no alternative. My sense is he seems to have woken up, looked ahead and said, well, there's no going back now, and there's only one way to go. You can only go forward and not backward. He told himself, I was lucky, I'm still alive and can now prepare myself for a new life and live by the creed, if I can no longer do what I want, then I have to want what I can do. Happy?
It fits. Feels good.
No pressure points?
No pain.
Nice.
Every step takes enormous effort, both physically and mentally. One day, Georg Winterling hopes to be able to work again. Before the sepsis, he was a marketing team leader at a medium-sized company.
Work is a very important part of my life. It's integral. It was part of my old life. It's part of my new life, too. I'm 40 years old. I couldn't imagine just sitting at home from now on and taking early retirement. That feels strange. It just feels wrong.
1, 2, go. You did it.
Didn't crush your hand, did I?
No.
Standing, walking, Georg wants to reclaim as much of his old life as possible. Despair and doubt are his constant companions.
I have many inner demons, no doubt about it. There are days when I could just scream at the wall. Everyone can imagine what it's like. There are certain questions I simply shouldn't ask myself right now. Questions like, why me? Why not someone else? Above all, it's the question, who's to blame? These are the two most important questions that I try to ignore all the time, because there is no answer to them, and they don't get me anywhere either.
After 6 months, Georg Winterling is allowed to leave the clinic. He is happy to be back in his home in Bielefeld and tries to apply what he has learned during his rehabilitation.
A lot is possible. A lot is no longer possible. A lot simply has to be planned with the help of family members. It starts with getting lunch out of the fridge. I have to use my wheelchair to get food and then be able to heat it up. There's difficulties in the morning too, using toothpaste when brushing my teeth. The toothbrush can't be too far away so that I can still reach it. This is part of everyday life. Some of what I had taken for granted has suddenly become an obstacle, and some things are just impossible.
Georg Winterling doesn't give up if something doesn't work right away. He sees it all as a set of physical challenges, something he used to seek out when he was younger.
I grew up on skis. I used to ski off-slope as much as possible, and I mean really off-slope. In the backcountry, the steeper the better. There were no limits before. And I was also a passionate dancer. My wife was my dance partner, of course. I'm trying to instill this attitude into my children, but of course that will be a bit more difficult to do in the future.
The fact that parts of his life are returning to normal is due mainly to his wife Alexandra. She and Georg have been married for 12 years.
You learn to adapt to the situation. It's like a movie and it didn't feel like our life. It's only now that the 4 of us are back at home that everyday life has slowly crept back in. What's different? Driving the kids to where they need to go in the morning by myself. That was a task we used to share. That I have to make sure before I leave the house that I leave Georg a coffee cup with a straw in it. And that I wash an apple for him to eat.
She will never forget the first time she visited her husband in the hospital after his amputation with their 2 children.
We came into Georg's room. The first thing Ferdinand said was, "Dad, where are your hands?" And I said, "I told you, remember?" But then very soon it was just like always. We all staged a race with the wheelchair. Ferdinand ran alongside me. Leopold, the little one, was sitting on Georg's lap. So yes, it was just like always.
Georg and Alexandra share a coffee together in the late afternoon after she's come home from work. They talk about the traumatic experiences of the last few months and what has given them strength.
It's so important to have family around you for emotional support. My children and my wife have been such a comfort for me. I don't think I would have had the will and the motivation to work so hard on myself for such a long time without them.
Georg's high-tech prostheses cost thousands of euros. They're paid for mainly by his health insurance. Solidarity is an important principle in German society. The healthy pay for the sick, the rich for the poor. Everyone is entitled to the same medical treatment. Today, orthopedist Ulf Lotzky is giving Georg a new set of prostheses.
I've got your new feet with me.
They don't feel natural or agile.
As I said, at first it feels good to get a bit more support. It helps. Now you don't have so much play in them anymore. Great. You leaned back, but then adjusted all on your own.
Georg Winterling is making progress. But he's eager for things to improve even more quickly.
Things will continue to progress. If one approach doesn't work, there's always another. And finding that new approach becomes the important thing to do. The most important thing is to keep going and to keep at it.
Georg Winterling has already recaptured aspects of his former life, such as skiing. Of course, it's different than it was back then, before his surgeries, the way so many things are since that fateful day when he suffered what seemed like a minor injury in the cellar.